the world's fastest race boats, the Unlimited Hydroplane. Today, it's the Columbia Cup. Hello, everybody. I'm Jim Hendrick along with Sam Cole here in Tri-Cities, Washington. And Sam, a 2-mile race course. The first time we've seen that here. It's usually 2.5.
Yes, it is, Jim. This past winter at the Unlimited Safety Committees, it was voted to try to shorten courses to make race courses safer courses. It's turned out to be a very fast 2-mile course, a world record this week by Atlas Van Lines. The Miss Budweiser right in behind there, and it's going to be a heck of a boat race here today.
No doubt about it. So we have to actually win this race in the turns.
That's right. It's going to be a very short straightaway course. The boat that gets in and out of those turns the fastest could possibly be the winner here. It's the 7th race of the 1983 Thunderboat World Series, and we've had 3 different winners, and you never know what you can expect in boat racing.
And we've got a fast field because the 5 fastest actually, they've run over 122 mile an hour to get to the final flight, and that used to be record speeds.
That's right. The average speed of the top 5 boats was 126 miles an hour here. The top 6 boats in the field came into the Frank Kennedy Tornado drops down, so we have 5 boats, every one of them over 120 miles an hour.
Those viewing today on ESPN might say, where is Tri-Cities, Washington? Well, there's 3 cities, Pasco, Kennewick, and Richland. And it was here, secretly, during World War II, that a great part of the atomic bomb that ended that war was developed right here outside this trio of towns.
That's right, and for years the race was called the Atomic Cup. It's now the Columbia Cup. Let's see if the Squire Shop can win its 3rd in a row here, or let's see who's going to be the winner here on ESPN.
A lot of action forthcoming, and we'll have the first heat for you in just a moment. We're all set to go here on the Columbia River in Tri-Cities, Washington for Heat 1A, and the 5 fastest boats have qualified this past week are set to go for the first day's action, and to run it down, Sam Cole.
Jim, we're about 1 minute away right now from the start of the race. In this heat, it's the Atlas Van Lines, the defending national champion, driven by Chip Hanauer, owned by Fran Muncy and the crew chief, Jim Harvey. It's a blue and white boat. The U-12, the Miss Budweiser, our 2nd fastest qualifier, driven by Jim Kropfeld, owned by Bernie Little, and the crew chief is Dave Cully. It's red, white, and gold. The Miss Renault and Milner Irvin U-3, owned by Jerry Shanitz, it's yellow and black. American Speedy Printing, driven by Jack Schaefer Jr., owned by RV Bob Taylor, it's red and white. And the Squire Shop U2, driven by Earl Hall, owned by Bob Style, it's red and white. We're 30 seconds away from the start.
As the boats go up there, Budweiser on the inside, we talked to Jim Kropfeld earlier and asked him where he wanted to start in this first heat.
Well, my strategy for the first heat is going to be no strategy. I'll go out and see what the Atlas wants to do. I think he's probably going to want to try a drag race start. The water is very smooth here, and that's to his benefit. And if he does that, I'll have to stay back and just take what's left.
It's Renault on the inside, American Speedy Printing in the 3rd lane. It's the Atlas Van Lines on the outside, Budweiser, and here they go. Down to the number 1. Budweiser was on the outside, as he told us he'll start anywhere and try to pull him. As they go down to corner number 1, it looks like Niagara Falls as they dive in the corner number 1 for the first time today, Sam.
It sure does, Jim, and it's Chip Hanauer in the Atlas Van Lines, and whoa, he takes a big jump out of the water. Hanauer brings it around the turn, but here comes Jim Kropfeld and the Miss Budweiser.
As they come down that back chute, almost side by side. Look at the Atlas Van Lines start to pull in lane number 1 right now. As they come down to corner number 3, there goes Budweiser. Oh, he almost flew it right off the edge. He really showed him the short way there as he goes into corner number 3, almost side by side. Keep those cameras tight, guys, because look at the rooster tail as he hangs it on that skid pin right now. That 2nd rooster tail comes up, shows you he's in a turn, and it's Budweiser coming closer to lane 1. Give him a little squeeze, and Kropfeld now brings it down to complete lap number 1.
We're going to have to watch that, Jim Hendrick, as Kropfeld goes by. Jim Hanauer got some wash. We're going to have to check with the officials. It was pretty tight as they came around there, but Jim Kropfeld, even though he doesn't have a lot of experience with Unlimited, he showed Chip Hanauer that he can hold a lane, and he pinched Atlas Van Lines in way tight. Atlas Van Lines is really bouncing through some of that wake that the Budweiser has left right now, as the Budweiser is in lap number 2. Coming down now, it looks like the Atlas Van Lines Pot of Little Water has really dropped back about 10 boat lengths now, and it'll be all Budweiser coming toward corner number 3. Here he is. He's starting to get back up on plane. He slowed way down off of corner number 2, Sam. Yes, something went wrong in the engine compartment there. He might have taken on some water or something. Hanauer slowed way down, giving Kropfeld about a 5.5-second lead here. The Miss Renault and Milner Irvin currently in 3rd. Here's our leader, Jim Kropfeld in the Miss Budweiser. Jack Schaefer in the American Speedy Prince 4th, and the Squire Shop and Earl Hall 5th. But Kropfeld is on his way to a victory here.
And Kid with the mustache from Cincinnati, the rookie in Unlimited Hideaway Racing. Actually, he won't have one full year in Unlimited until we hit San Diego, where he started to take over the Budweiser boat last year. He splashes through corners number 1 now on his 3rd lap.
Jim, here's Jack Schaefer in the Bob Taylor's American Speedy Printing Special out of Seattle, Washington, or Houston, Texas, I should say, as they've been working out of Seattle lately. He's in 4th place right now, chasing Milner Irvin. Here's our leader, Jim Kraftfeld, Miss Budweiser, and Bernie Little. They hold a 200-point lead over the Atlas Van Lines in the National Championship race.
And let's let the public on ESPN know how they score. A first place finish in any heat, elimination or final, gets 400 points. Second place goes 300 points. Then 225 for third, and right now, speaking of our 3rd place boat, it's the Miss Renault. And that boat, driven by Milner Irvin, owned by Jerry Shanath out of Detroit, has really come along. And I had a chance, our ESPN cameras went down to the pits before the race today, and Sam Cole had a chance to talk to Miller about the way the Renault was improving every race.
Milner, your boats never looked better this year as the Columbia River course, or are things just beginning to get dialed in for you?
Sam, we've been working awfully hard, and the crew's really worked hard, and we've done a lot of work on the sponsons, and it's calmed it down considerably. We can run a little faster down the straightaway. Not to take anything away from the Columbia Cup course, I think it's super, and I'm really happy to be running on a 2-mile course.
What about the Miss Renault? Back east, the water's a lot rougher and the like, and a lot of times you had to run through that slop, but it seemed to make it through pretty good.
Well, it's a good, strong boat. It's just pretty flighty. It was back east, as you remember, and here it's a little water smoother, and I think we'll run a little bit better here.
You're out here today. You're the 3rd fastest qualifier for the race. Are you gonna be able to give Chip and Jim a run for it?
Well, we sure hope so. I'm not totally confident that we won't still be flying a little bit. We qualified 3rd fastest, and we did that in smooth water. And when race time comes, it's going to be a little rougher than it has been. So we might be still flying, and it might not be quite as quick as it was in qualifying.
Back here on the race course, Miss Budweiser is down to corner number 1, has completed 4 laps right now. About 4.5 seconds back, and gaining some ground is the Atlas Van Lines in 2nd. The Miss Renault, and we just heard from the driver, Milner Irvin.
And the Atlas has a fire, Jim. Chip Hanauer as he goes down there. Here's Jack Schaefer and the American Speedy Printing boat. As Hanauer went into that turn, flames came out. He overloaded the engine, and that's what happened. Jack Schaefer, our number 4 boat right now in Bob Taylor's American Speedy Printing Special out of Houston, Texas. Here's the Atlas, Jim. Chip seems to have everything back in tune there.
I think he overloaded it as he come into corners number 1 of the apex, and you just saw a flash fire off them hot stacks, Sam. But he's riding pretty smooth now, and here's our leader coming off of corner number 4. The green flag.
Now, he'll get the checkered flag here, Jim. This is lap number 5 on this one for Kraftfeld, so he's going to win another heat aboard Bernie Little's boat. And you know, this is going to be his 14th heat victory of the year. He's only got 1 second-place finish all year long, but he's won 14 heats this year, 1 second place, so whenever he goes on a course, he does it. Chip Hanauer and the Atlas Van Lines will take a 2nd place here finish here this afternoon. Milner Irvin and the Renault, who we interviewed earlier, a very fine finish in 3rd, and Jack Schaefer and Bob Taylor's American Speedy Printing Special will take a 4th.
Everybody up here in the press deck kind of looked at me, and I did not see the checker flag come out. In fact, the checker flag on our flag boat inside the course did not show the checker flag to Budweiser, but did to Atlas Van Lines, so he's a little slow. But the Budweiser did not get any penalty, evidently.
Well, Jim, we're hooked up to our officials by our radio system, and Chief Referee Lee Shanath and Arnie Green were on there, and it was a checkered flag lap for everyone. Now, remember, 4 of these boats are going to advance to our final here later in the day, and we're going to hopefully see Earl Hall and the Squire Shop, who failed to finish.
All right, so the order finish was Miss Budweiser 1st, 2nd to the Atlas Van Lines, 3rd to Miss Renault, 4th to American Speedy Printing, and a DNF did not finish to the Squire Shop with driver Earl Hall. More action from the Tri-City, Washington area here on the Columbia River in just a moment. And this will be the first appearance on ESPN of our 2nd flight of boats. Now, if you will, Sam Cole, bring us the starting lineup.
In this heat, Jim, we have the Frank Kenny Toyota, the U6, driven by Ron Snyder, owned by the city of Madison, Indiana. It's a yellow, orange, and white boat. It won the opening event of the Thunderboat World Series at Lake of the Ozarks, Missouri. 2nd boat in this heat, the Executone, the U8, driven by George Johnson, owned by Bill Worcester out of Seattle, Washington. It's a blue and white boat. Number 3, the Miss Rock, KISW, the U40, owned and driven by Fred Leland. It's orange, yellow, and black. The Tempest, the U17, driven by Scott Pearson, owned by Chuck Hickling. It is a persimmon and tan boat, and the Kawaguchi Travel, the U-43, driven by Will Muncie, owned by Bill Drews out of Seattle, Washington. It is red and white.
These boats made an earlier appearance here today in their first elimination heat, and it was Frank Kenny Toyota with Ron Snyder winning by a 2-second margin over the Executive, driven by George Johnson. The Miss Rock, Fred Leland, finished third. Scott Pearson, the Tempest, fourth. And the Kawaguchi Special with Will Muncie driving finished overall fifth. And right now the Miss Rock was dead in the water, has just restarted on the infield. We'll have to see if she's going to be legal. Leading the crew up there in our corners number 3 and 4 is the Tempest. Now here's Frank Kenny Toyota swinging way wide. The Tempest will take the middle, and George Johnson, the Executive, will be right on the buoy line. So, and following up in there would be the Kawaguchi Special with the Miss Rock going very slow in the back chute. Here's the gun to start the race, and it's going to be Frank Kenny Toyota with Ron Snyder out in front by about 3 seconds over the Executive with George Johnson and Scott Pierce in the Tempest, owned by Chuck Higley. As they get down to corner number 1 for the first time, Sam.
Jim, Ron Snyder wired that start for the second time today. You know, he won this race here in 1978, and he really knows his way around the Columbia River Oval. Right now, he brings the community-owned boat out of the turn, heads up the backstretch. You know, this boat won our opening event of the Thunderboat World Series for 1983. That was the Missouri Governor's Cup Regatta. Now he's on his way here. All he has to do is keep it together here, and he'll advance to that winner-take-all final, which we'll see later on in the show.
Well, they have to keep it all together for the city of Madison, Indiana, the owners of the boat. Here's our second place boat. Coming up very fast is George Johnson in the Executive. And George is only 2 seconds off the checkered flag base. Wait a minute, Johnson's slowing down. The Executive has lost it in the engine housing. Something's let loose, and now the Tempest goes by him with Scott Pierce takes over second place. Here comes our leader to complete lap number 1. That's the Frank Kenny Toyota, driven by Ron Snyder. As we told you, the boat owned by the city of Madison, Indiana.
Snyder takes it on that. He's from Piqua, Ohio, Jim. It's a turbocharged Allison boat. Here's Fred Leland and the Miss Rock out of Seattle, Washington. He's our 4th place boat right now. Coming up on him will be Scott Pierce in Chuck Hickling's Tempest, built in Hickling's garage. Lap number 1 for the Frank Kenny Toyota, 108.271. And going for a ride here is Will Muncie in the Kawaguchi Travel. And you know, he's the son of the late, great Bill Muncie, Jim.
And in the conventional type hydro, he's currently riding in 3rd place. Our leader is now down the back chute. Ron Snyder with about a half a straightaway lead over the Tempest, currently running in 2nd place. There's our 3rd place boat. He's riding in 2nd position, but he started late, so officially he's 3rd. Our leader now is at the corner number 3. Hangs it on the skid pin, gets a splash of water, slides sideways a little bit behind the Turbo Allisons, and brings it out off of corner number 4 to come out and complete lap number 3.
And you know, you've got to wonder, Jim, as Snyder goes down through here. Here's our 2nd place finisher. Scott Pierce has got to be wondering back there what's going to happen if something happens to Mr. Snyder. He could sneak into that final heat here today because he's got points as well. Pierce is in this boat. It was built in Chuck Hickling's garage in Seattle, Washington. The 2nd lap for the Frank Kenny Toyota, 109.924. But here's Scott Pierce, our 2nd place boat here today.
Earlier today, Scott Pierce, of course, rejoining our circuit after missing the first 6 races. And earlier today, Sam Cole had a chance to talk to the nice young man.
Scott, you're in action for the first time this year in a boat that's not always the fastest, but certainly it's always been in the money.
Yeah, it's done very well in the past. It's always very consistent. It's very well prepared by Chuck. We were hoping he was going to have his new one here for its 83 debut, but it's not quite done, so we have this one back. But I think we'll do fair today.
What about Scott Pierce? How do you size the competition that you're up against?
Well, I'm just hoping I can win the slow heats, and then I'm going to have to run a consolation to go into the final. And I think if I do my job, that I'll be able to pull that one off.
Our leader is Ron Snyder in the Frank Kenny Toyota. Next time he comes around, he'll come around to take the green flag. And he's going for a Sunday ride right now. He will make the final. Being the fact that he was bumped out of the top 5 and had an average qualifying speed of over 118.6 miles an hour, which about 5 years ago was good enough to win a race. He's been bumped down to what we call the slower classification of boats, and none of them today are really that slow. But by winning this one, he'll assure himself of rounding out, be the 5th boat in the final field. Our top 4 of the 5 boats are automatically seated in the final. This one now, Frank Kenny Toyota Volvo with Ron Snyder from Piqua, Ohio driving, will move up to the final. And the winner of the consolation heat, which will be coming up very, very shortly, Well, that winner will also move into the final. We'll have a 6-boat final out of the 12 boats that entered the pits here in Tri-Cities, Washington, a couple of days ago. The green flag is out. Around corner number 4 comes Ron Snyder. One more lap to go. A 2-mile oval here, the shortest course they've ever run in Tri-Cities. Miss Rock there currently 3rd place. That's Fred Leland in his cab over. Very, very brightly colored boat. Representing a radio station out of Seattle, Washington, KISW. He comes off at corner number 4, and he'll get no green flag because he's a lap behind everybody because he had a problem at the start of this race. Our leader now is down on corner number 2, coming down the back chute for the final time. Then they'll bring that boat in and gas it up, check it out, and it'll be ready for the final later today. Our 2nd place boat just coming down here to complete the 4th lap of 5 and take the green flag. There he is, the young man we just had a chance to chat with, Scott Pierce in Chuck Hickling's Tempest.
And you know, the Frank Kenny Toyota boat has not had an engine failure all year long. They've been the most consistent boat on the tour this year. Snyder's lap speed's 102.5 the last time around.
He came close when he won the Governor's Cup in Missouri because he was wiping oil off his goggles. He said if he had one more lap to go with that wastegate flopping, he might have had a problem.
He sure did, but right now he's going to bring it across the line as the winner and advance to our winner-take-all finale here in the Columbia Cup. Here's Ron Snyder wiping his goggles, I should say, with his gloves. Got oil all over his face, and he gave everyone a wave there at home here on ESPN.
As he takes the checker flag. Right now, our 2nd place boat is halfway down the back chute. That will be Scott Pierce in the Tempest. Our 3rd place boat is not to be seen. He's down in the water in the back chute, so 5 boats start. 3 will finish, and give us the order of finish, if you will, Sam.
Our winner will be the Frank Kenny Toyota Volvo out of Seattle, Washington. Ron Snyder, the driver. 2nd place will go to the Tempest, and Scott Pierce, very respectably. Did not finishing will be the Miss Rock and Fred Leland, the Kawaguchi Travel and Will Muncie, and the Executone and George Johnson.
More action from Tri-Cities, Washington, the Columbia Cup for unlimited hydroplanes after this.